Why do you like to listen to records? Was a simple question posed to me last night by my 14-year-old daughter after I came downstairs from listening to some music up here. At the time, I was on my way to do some errand, do the dishes, do something or other. I didn't want to get into a long, drawn-out explanation, so I think I just said, oh, I just like to. But afterwards, through the rest of the evening, into today, the question kept turning over and over in my mind. Maybe it's a really simple, obvious question. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, but I thought maybe I would record a bit of a video response. This is basically directed to her, to Sarah. Maybe one day, maybe long after I'm gone, she can look at this video, understand a bit about her dad, why I've filled up this room with circular black discs containing music, and maybe get to know me a little bit better. At the time, I'd just come downstairs from listening to this, Minutes from Downtown. I bought this at a record fair quite some years back. Canadian pop from the 80s, 1983, I think this was released. 5-song EP. The band never released anything else. Contains the single Wrapped in Velvet, which I definitely remember hearing on the radio at the time. I would have had it recorded off the radio onto a cassette like one of these. Still have some of these. I can't even play them now. I don't have a cassette player. Would write down the track lists like this. Some of these I didn't even know what the songs were. Can't play it, so I don't know now. But it's got Der Kommissar by Falco on here, Haircut 100's Love Plus One, The Go-Go's, Phil Collins, Billy Idol, Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper, kicking things off. So when I started collecting records again, I wanted to have all those songs that I'd previously only ever had on some lo-fi cassette. I wanted a physical copy of these that I could play whenever I wanted, so I could revisit those times. There's a nostalgia factor to vinyl. Through vinyl, I could revisit all the music that I'd grown up listening to. It's a generational thing. That was the format, that was the key format for music when I was growing up. She's just starting to get into music herself. Both my kids are autistic, so maybe their relationship to music is not typical of everyone else's, but she's just starting to come into her own, figure out what songs she likes. She'll either tune into the radio when we're in the car, find songs she likes. Afterwards, she'll go to the Alexa device and ask it to play this song or that song. But there's something not quite the same as listening to music on a physical format. Listening to music, particularly on vinyl, is a physical act, a chore, if you will. You have to go pick out the record you want, pull it out. You have to cue up the needle. There's an investment of time and energy into that that somehow makes the experience more visceral, more rewarding, more intense than just listening to it by streaming, by some electronic app. There's a nostalgia factor, as I said. My first record I ever owned, Star Wars soundtrack. My parents got me this for me in the late 1970s. Huge Star Wars fan. This is my original copy. At the time, I think I was disappointed that it didn't have the actual dialogue from the scenes on it, though I did get that version later on. When I started seriously getting into learning more about music, I would start buying my own LPs. The very first one, this is the original copy I bought back then with my own money. My first LP, Duran Duran's Rio, still in pretty nice shape. I can still remember listening to this on my little turntable in my bedroom. Still remember all of those songs. For my birthday in 1983, my best friend at the time gave me this album, The Eurythmics. Didn't quite know what to make of it at the time, but still have it all these years later. Soon I began getting into exploring the music of the past with my parents, just going back and discovering the roots of the music I was hearing now. My mom was encouraging in that. We used to go to the flea markets, pick up people's old records off their little tables of secondhand goods that they would sell for $1 or $2. One of the ones, this is my mom's original copy again, though I do have a better condition one, Treasury of Great Contemporary Hits, came out on ABC Dunhill. It would be here, I would first hear Steppenwolf, Mamas and the Papas. I can still hear my mom singing along to this one, my late mom. Mamas and Papas, Three Dog Night, The Grassroots, Let's Live for Today. Still love that one. So there's a nostalgia factor. There is a kinetic sense of physically queuing up the record, a commitment of energy, a commitment of time and money, of course, to going out to buying these physical objects that you don't get with digital music. Not that there's anything wrong with listening to music digitally. I'll do that myself. I have nothing against any other format. If I don't own some album, if I'm in the gym, away from the turntable, from the CD player, I'll go on YouTube, listen to some rare album I don't have, as well as personal nostalgia. There's a certain sense of nostalgia associated with more recent years of watching my kids interact with music. Like I said, they're both autistic. My son had a brief fascination with vinyl probably about 5 years ago, since completely lost interest. But one of the records I'd happened to find at a thrift store, had never heard of it, decided to check it out. He heard it, fell in love with it. There's still a video my wife has of me out of the house. I was maybe away at work or something, and he went upstairs to the music room, queued up the record by himself, and was singing along with this one, Cecil Gant, kind of Fats Domino style R&B. He was singing along with a song called I Wonder. Cute moment I'll never forget. With my daughter, like I said, she's tried queuing up records, a bit nervous attempting it, but I definitely have some records that are associated with her. When she was first born, she was diagnosed with hip dysplasia. For the first 6 months of her life, every night we used to have to put her in this hip brace. She hated it. She would cry. So my wife and I would have to sing a song to kind of calm her down, get her locked into this hip brace. And the song we sang was Doo-Wah-Diddy by Manfred Mann. No idea why, but we still can't hear that song today without thinking of those nights putting her into this hip brace, her not understanding why she couldn't be allowed to move. When she was a little bit older, I think there's still a video somewhere, me playing Edison Lighthouse's Love Grows, Where My Rosemary Goes, dancing around with her when she was a little baby. So vinyl is a key to unlocking all these memories of the past, feelings. It can be a time travel tool in a sense. You could, through vinyl, through the medium of that format, you can travel back in time to different ages, different periods you never got to experience. Woodstock soundtrack happened the year I was born, did not happen, could not have experienced it firsthand, but I can play this record and I can go back and experience something of what it was like to be there at that time. If you're going to get into learning more about music, getting deeper into the nuts and bolts, the history of it all, you're going to have to make your peace with vinyl at some point. For example, this is one I'd never heard of, picked it up and was surprised to find on the very first track, Found a Child, the source of the break for Young MC's Bust a Move. Didn't even know it was a sample when I first heard that song. Probably had never even heard of sampling. But the original break on here, kind of funky, horn-drenched rock here. Obscure thrift find, really intriguing mystery behind it. I was playing this again just the other day. Cover is not what the album actually is. The Five-Man Cargo with Ronnie Mitchell. This album actually doesn't exist. The album on the cover, The Five-Man Cargo, was a local Vancouver garage band in the late 60s. had some contractual problems, broke up for a while. They rented a basement of a house, a turkey farm, about half an hour away from where I live here, recorded enough material for an album, but it was never actually recorded. But somehow, the record that I have here ended up in these sleeves with the proper track listing just kind of pasted on here. So it must have been printed up at some point, but the actual album is Reaction and Peter Marino on the Periwinkle Records label, kind of early 70s, soul, bit of funk on here. Peter Marino is the singer. He's got a bit of a loungy kind of 70s Elvis thing going on some tracks, but when they cut loose with the Hammond organ on songs like Welcome to the Country, this has got some funky moments on it. Some covers of the Isley Brothers' It's Your Thing on here, as well as I think there's a Barry White tune on here. So funky, kind of blue-eyed soul with some nasty Hammond organ going on in this album. Would never have heard this if I hadn't happened across the record. But the main thing about vinyl, the main thing I want to get across, some of the main things, the album art. You can't appreciate the tactile experience of vinyl on a little thumbnail on a screen. Check out that cover art there. I don't know if I can even show that properly. Moody Blues, Question of Balance. I was talking about that in a recent video. Another one I had on the turntable again recently, SF Sorrow by The Pretty Things, a concept album revolving around the life of one man, SF Sorrow. You could pull up Barren Saturday on YouTube or stream it somehow, but are you going to get the same experience of listening to the entire LP as the artist originally intended? But the main thing is the emotional response it evokes. That's why I go for vinyl above all other formats. And again, this is not to knock listening to music any other way. Maybe this is just me. If anybody else has a response to this, I'd love to hear it. But it was just me kind of formulating some thoughts, and this is directed mainly to my daughter. But it's the emotional response it evokes, the investment perhaps of physically queuing up the record, the investment of energy. Life, after all, is full of chores, of tasks. You can't just, maybe one day you can, but right now you can't just request your washing machine to wash your clothes, to fold your clothes, the dishwasher to wash the dishes. You have to go over and physically do it. And playing music in vinyl or on a CD is like that as well. You have to physically invest the energy in it. You have to mentally and financially invest energy into going out and finding it and sourcing it. And all of these things perhaps result in a deeper connection to music. Music is almost like a drug. You can get an endorphin high. It can make you, listening to music on vinyl can make you jump up, dance around, get excited, get exuberant. It can move you in ways that maybe listening to the same music on another method cannot do. For example, the Diana Ross self-titled solo album with a full extended mix of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. First time I heard that on vinyl, I was moved nearly to tears. And I've heard that song before. I knew it. Maybe I wouldn't have had that extreme a response if I was listening to it on the radio or streaming it or even playing the CD. But listening to vinyl, I did. So that is my thoughts on why I like to listen to records. This is dedicated to you, Sarah, and I'd love to hear anybody else's thoughts on the subjects. Either leave me a comment down below or do a video response if you're so moved to do so. Thanks for watching, guys.